Hey everyone, welcome to our event. I'm Sneja. I'm one of the people who, one of the two people right now who run the new small press called Match Factory Editions. And thank you. Yeah. And we're Dawn's publisher. And so luckily for Dawn and for us, Brenda Cárdenas and Roberto Harrison agreed to drive up here from Milwaukee and support Dawn and support us. So let's give the poets a big round of applause.
Let's do it from Wisconsin. Escape from Wisconsin.
And I figured I would start with some poetry gossip, which I feel like everyone here probably knows, but when Roberto Harrison first heard Brenda Cárdenas read, he fell for her right away. So be prepared, but also know that she's now taken because she fell for Roberto. So settle down, but also be prepared. So this happened years ago, and then I think some years later, maybe my timeline is off. You'll correct me. Unrelated to this love story. Dawn went to pursue her PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where Brenda was a professor and became her mentor, and then eventually a friend. And one little tidbit that I wanted to put in your heads right away, because we are chatting about resistance, among other things, is that they were there, I think both of you were there for the Wisconsin uprising, and you can ask them about that, and Dawn has poems about it. And all kinds of stuff. And Roberto, you were there too, right? Yeah. So the Wisconsin uprising of 2011. Soon thereafter, Dawn moved to Chicago. I think probably that experience, again, I'm speaking maybe, I'm brown charting here. I feel like that was the experience that kind of led you from Dawn, from like becoming a professor to becoming a labor organizer.
No,
among other things. No, not.
I
Okay,
had
you.
already supported workers in organizing in
Yeah.
many areas in Wisconsin.
Okay. So this by
They
then
forced
you
me
had
to move
already
here for the
graduated.
They forced me to move to Chicago for the job.
Okay. Thank you.
For another job. They sent you around the country organizing, so I had to go wherever they sent me.
So you had graduated by then already.
Yeah, I graduated
Okay.
in 2011
Okay.
during the Wisconsin uprising.
I stand corrected. But yeah. So anyway, labor organizing did bring her to Chicago, which is where we meet about 10 years ago, and reading Dawn's manuscripts was one of the reasons why I started talking to my friend Robin, who lived in South Carolina at the time. Now she lives in LA, about starting a small press and figuring out how to do that. It was Dawn's manuscript and a bunch of manuscripts by my friends, whom then I invited to submit to us and to get published by us. I knew that not everyone would say yes, because writers are, strange beings. Sometimes they don't think that their manuscript is ready, and then we have to wait. But Dawn agreed with me that her manuscript was ready. So once Riot was the first manuscript not by the founders of the press that we published, and I couldn't be more proud. It really, I think, set the standard right out there. And what else? I think that's all I wanted to say right now. I provided little brochures for you to read about Dawn and a little bit about Brenda and Roberto, who need no introduction by comparison with us. And first, we're going to hear from Brenda Cárdenas. She's the current Wisconsin Poet Laureate. She's serving as the current Wisconsin Poet Laureate. And then after Brenda reads, then right away Roberta will read. I'm manning the video camera, so we had some personnel issues. So that's why I don't want to keep coming back up. And then so after that, Roberta will read. Roberta served as a Milwaukee Poet Laureate, and you can ask them about that during the Q&A. And then Dawn will read, and then we'll have a Q&A. So let's give our poets, once again, a round of applause, especially to Brenda Cárdenas, who will just come up and read.
so much. Thank you for having me, Dawn. It means a lot to me that you asked us to come up and read with you for your book launch. I have always so admired Dawn's work from the time that I started working with her on another manuscript that's also brilliant, back when she was doing her PhD. I'm such a fan of her work that I'm so happy that this book has come out. And I'm so happy for Match Factory too, that you're out there in the world and you're publishing all these wonderful books. They have Paul Martinez Pompa's book coming out as well. Anybody who might know Paul, he's such a fine poet. So yeah, I'm super happy about all of it. And thank you all for being here. So I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna read mostly new poems and then a few poems from my 2023 book, Trace, which is on the table over there. This first poem is called Lineage. There he is, I was just talking about you, about your book coming out. Hi, Paul. This first poem is titled Lineage, and this poem just came out in Prairie Schooner, in the most recent issue of Prairie Schooner. I'm talking to my great-grandmother in the poem. Bisabuela means great-grandmother. Burro is a donkey, as you probably know. Aguacate is an avocado. And when I say la adelitas bandolera, the adelitas were the women soldiers who fought alongside the men in the Mexican Revolution. And the bandoleras were the X's of bullets that they wore across their chests. Lineage. Para la bisabuela I never knew. Our lineage. 8 burros fencing a single aguacate tree in the middle of an open field. This is where you kneel. Hide behind the blinking eyes, soft bellies of a breathing shield. Tails smacking at buzz-stung air. Torches burn barns to the ground behind you. Daughters grasping both your hands. Youngest slung across your breast like la Adelita's bandolera, all because you packed a lunch, tied a sprig of mint in your son's hat. They said he was feeding the wrong side. So they bound his hands and marched him blindfolded 3 days to the next village, where a noose wreathed his neck, feet planted like stones on a crate. What if you hadn't burst in, breathless and begging, just before they kicked it out from under him? From under the church that received his sun-beaten body, soaked rags and raindrops of water on clay lips. From under the train that hauled him north, with the woman who housed seeds that would sprout, ears perked for each other's screaming when she pushed all of us into the singed world with no ring of stubborn creatures to shield us. So that thank you, is referencing my grandfather, who was almost hung, right? Very close to being hung, because they said he was taking food to the revolutionaries. He was just a campesino, he just had lunch for himself. And that kind of precipitated their migration to Milwaukee. Only they missed the train and got off in Detroit and realized they got off in the wrong place, and some of them stayed there and some of them got back on the train and went back to Milwaukee. So we have a Rivera clan in Detroit. Okay, this next poem is called Cien Nombres para la Muerte, Las Jodidas, the Screwed Ones. And this comes from a series of poems that I have been writing that respond to the drawings by Eric Ricardo de Luna Enel. And they're black and whites, where he has death configured in many different ways. Interestingly, she's always female. And these are the drawings I'm responding to in the poem. So here she is, La Jodida, carrying stacks of wood. I'll pass them around.
I'll take them.
Here she is, La Huesos, with these cages of birds on her back. And then here she is, La Carcona, carrying a baby. Okay. So, 100 nombres para la muerte, or 100 names for death. Las jodidas, the screwed ones. We are bent from the loads we've carried, strapped to our bony backs, sacks of maíz, hierbas, frijoles, bundles of firewood, jerry jugs of precious agua. Each Saturday, we haul tall stacks of caged birds to the mercado to sell their captive songs, their laments, our heaviest burden. Habo a mile in our ragged huaraches, holes in their tire tread soles, follow us to the village of whispers, where only gritos belong to the wind, empty doorways grown over with weeds, our men's dusty boots waiting years for their return. Look into the cenotes of our eyes. You'll find no fish, no flores, no monedas, only sacrifices with their mouths full of mud and the dread of our itchy grins. Then tell us you would never risk wrapping your little lamb in a rebozo, grabbing your withered staff and heading north. Devil's son, scorpion, migra be damned. You'd fly for the birds whose latches you could not unlock. You'd fly so the only satchel your daughter hoists on her shoulders is heavy with libros, lápices, y sueños. You'd fly, never believing they would wrest her from your back and lock her in a cage. And I wrote that during the first Felon 47 administration, right? When they were locking children in cages. And now, as you all know, it's even worse. This next poem is titled Bewitched. Bewitched by abuela's bleat at quarter till midnight, piercing our quarantine. Bewitched by the fur growing on her chin, by the greedy king who measures us according to how silent he can keep our tongues. Bewitched by rats who ate a baby boy in a tenement of the segregated North that has always refused to see itself, promised land that wasn't. Bewitched by the chorus of shame forever biting at our heels as we run barefoot down alleys through deserts. Bewitched by the borderlands in our every breath, by the ocular magic in our mal de ojo. Bewitched by wilted words whispering themselves back to life in a flourish of blood spells. Bewitched by the mermaid tails beneath our pantalones, their fins always swimming to freedom. Bewitched by the jinn who have no respect for the rich king and his false dragons. Bewitched by a sacred pyre that beckons us to story this world, then dance. Bewitched by the yeast that still rises, no matter who is baking, no matter who is breaking the bread. Thank you. And this is titled Deportation. We were all once citizens of snow, born beneath the stretched skins, taut tarps of our sisters and brothers. Stateless citizens of desert doorways so low, our kin had to bow to greet us as we entered the ark of this world. We each held a bowl of slate blue sky, and wherever we carried it welcomed us home. See, there are no nations, no papers, no passports. There are no quotients in this genius heritage, only jungles of bougainvillea that reach like bodies to the morning sun, iguana tails smacking still air, only ladders to other levels of love. So in my world, there would be no borders. And this poem is titled, If All of History Were Stuffed in a Jar. If all of history were stuffed in a jar, could you count the antelope eyes and owl talons, the suffocating worms, moths, buffaloes staining the plains? Could you divine colonizers' gauche lust for the hustle and chase, busloads of gold, their filthy blankets, their wheezing Anthropocene? Would you shake the jar, rattle its plastic potpourri, its acrylic aurochs teeth? Could your ears have ever anticipated the blast in uranium, that the word greenhouse would evoke gas chambers, the code that conifers would create to speak with their deciduous neighbors, secret talk like drum beats. Just think, I might have watched through the mason's glass our final solar eclipse. You might have pried open the lid and stolen an amulet you thought you could use as a shield. This poem is just a lot of fun to read. So I'm going to read it to you. It has a lot of Spanish in it, so I couldn't possibly translate it all, but just enjoy the rhythms, and I think you'll get a lot of it from context. This is another acrostic poem written after a piece of graffiti art done by Chaz Bojorquez, who's a Los Angeles artist. And he called his piece Placa, Roll Call, which is also the name of the poem. And it begins with an epigraph by Chaz. He said, if the city was a body, graffiti would tell us where it hurts. And this block would shout, nos diste un chingazo, cabrón. Mira esta cara rota, these baton cracked ribs, this black and blue street dizzy con gente. Blades, Kiki, Larry Snow, Enrique Connie, Elton King, David Kelly, Jeff Raton, Chaz. Los de aquí, los de abajo. This roll call won't be silenced, not by Glock, not by chokehold. This, our temple of runes, our tomb, its glyphic curve and flow, calligraphic code writ acrylic. This, our relic, our scroll unrolled in catacombs, our flecks of subtext still buzzing. Después de que vayamos con la pelona, que lucha, loco, ven, baila con nosotros to the aerosols, maraca y hiss. Al punk en español's furious sweat, hang your head out the window y dale un grito tan lleno de duende that it cracks the pavement, summons our dead to dinner, turn the tonal kaleidoscope, then pause, catch your breath, so you don't miss the illegible moment where all the mystery lives. There, decipher that. A few more here. This one, memoir, is, I'm thinking about, the Wisconsin uprising and how we were in Madison every day protesting. Dawn, I think, was sleeping there. We were going back and forth every day. But, my days protesting go way back before that. And I mean, I feel like, I've always been protesting and thinking that it's going to get better and better. It seems to get worse and worse. And this sort of recalls some of those memories. And where I'm at now. So it's called Memoir. Once, and this first part references something that happened here in Chicago. Once, my footloose friend was riding her bicycle downtown, scarf fluttering like a tiny kite in her wake as she followed a voice she knew was mine, pulsing through a bullhorn, all firestorm and quake. Hell hath no fury, like a teacher stripped of her health insurance. Once, I felt a glass building shake as my two palms among hundreds slammed its walls, business-busting immigrants into shards to ship in a box. I was a messy crone, even in my youth, eyes rolling a 360 like a doll's, trying to see everywhere at once. Isn't that what it is to be a citizen? A kitchen door? A camera? Now, smoking guns still smoldering in my head, I bring blankets, water, a young friend shaking her lion's mane into a roar as she glissades into the crowd, a film of all our heroes behind her eyes. This is my legacy, teeth ground down to cracking, a tool hanging from my keyring to cut the razor wire holding us back. Okay, I am going to read you like two more poems. They're short, a lot of these are very short. This is a strange one. It's called In the Understory, and it's coming out in Huizache, along with the one I read about history being stuffed in a jar, Huizache magazine. In the Understory. In the understory, acorn caps and scaly leaves, a lichen feast and buttery moss, the caraway seed fallen from a hiker's rye, quiver with every step. What you wish to document is under the bridge where the blue-black mystic pulses, and no matter how carefully they dredge the creek, they will never find your friend. But the windshield will surface in the current's surge. Beneath the story, beneath the bridge, beneath the tooth's bed, nerve like a paper wasp in the brain, you steady the dowsing rod that searches not for water, but for that feckless beast eating your tongue as if it were rare meat. Beneath the grammar is a fork in the sentence that turns toward unrest. Don't tell. It barely had a pulse, but the trees fed it unfiltered oxygen, and now it breathes. Okay, and I'm gonna end for you, thank you, on this poem called Erin's End, which is coming out in, what's Tony's magazine called? Allium, which is here in Chicago. Tony Trigilio publishes it. Erin's End. If there's a bruise on the apple, yawn widely enough to wrap your teeth around it. Some will picture you screaming, though you are only loving the whole fallen fruit, its bracelet of scars, clots, fresh prints sunk in the skin. Run into the leaf green field as if joy were your errand's end, instead of loitering like a hound, sniffing out each drop of despair. Consider the stone in your shoe, especially when it cuts the soul, a reminder of what you've left behind, that hiss and fist twisting down the core. Are we still talking about apples? Only you can answer that. Only you can button your jacket against the scissor wind or leave it open and flapping like a great horned owl's ragged, massive wings. Thank you. Gracias.
Read, Dawn. Congratulations on the beautiful looking books. Congratulations, Dawn. Poor connection. Give me morning. As I run outside, the animals are here. I return to find the signals that we washed with. In the screen's connection, lines remain to find the faces we have lost to violence through a log. In the climate where we are, relation, an end and not a means. The depth of every process straddled by the sea inside us is an answer for the oceans, lacking form or error message, an amputation that we see in the froth of social senses. To distinguish interfaces, a network of belonging to the blood inside us through the night. Our every breath has met the morning, which dissolves to make a memory of but in likelihood. As services run out of frames, restart our wandering intentions through the 7 places in our own return to self-negations, to the door that we remain together with, to stand among, or even actualize, be innocent in falling bodies, where we are, and where we stand to fade, with earth, with all in borrowed silence. Where do we replant ourselves to signal, as the heat of our dismay must follow others into nourishment and wounded social fabric from escape? This is how we rise and how we stand. Each of our deliveries must make it move with us to see that we might follow words with breathing in the sovereign stardust we alone must live in, to become again what others are not now. January 1st, 2023. Today I sleep nowhere. The night arrives to the morning. A luminous object encounters. In darkness, I see that the morning is counted. The answers become us in silence. Outside in the weather, I know that the ground holds my body. I move with the music inside. when I travel through absence again. For the warmth of a wandering earth, I speak nowhere. I find us together, an ocean at night in the forest. I sing for horses, for faces, for four. A seven attends me for the bridge underground to make hosts for a song I become. Morning harness. In the morning, I awaken the sun as we dissolve to be on the tongue. Our homes take on the alabaster shark that we return to find the others in my jungle arena. Nowhere has called us to become again as we are, as we destroy, to make ourselves like a face in the interface of all knowledge. Where do we know this? What location has our heart become to endure and to relive the extenuating circumstances of youth behind glass in the Appalachians? How can I touch it to return to the sentence of speaking? But the sleep says that we must stop returning to where the parking lot has ended, for the promise of the exotic animals. Each of our limbs then guide us to the shore as we dissolve the crabs and stand among them with an ancient chicken of ocean removals and a blank civilization. Make me a skyward reception for each season as we endure with the silence of the words. The dog brings us home. The chaos of my absent aura, the ringlets of pus on my smallest fingers and toes become the movement of the oceans as we deter the parking structure from our wandering staff. But my news channel, the only one that connects to my anger and solitude, as rivers roam again through the afternoon, these matter less to the hummingbirds as I move to name them in my shadows, whereas I remain to the river, I become again as we dissolve to meet others through each catastrophe, to stop again and muse that squirrels remain, but which of them really understand, which have it in them to create meaning with form and faces. We deliver hand in hand the fashion steps that we hold, to remain again as a shadow, and as we are together to belong to the clearest lake. Every other place must submerge as we remove the hair from each of our deliveries, as we communicate the shadow makes its own destruction. The shadow does not own it, but I must. In the plural patternless receptions that we meander through the storms of the cognizant, through them to arrive at a Spanish kingdom that collapses the color kites without memory. We remove that we become without shattering segments, that we embrace the agriculture that we share in the perception of each other's outlines. The news becomes us again, and we share that the food has come to be in the lecture of memory in the mammal state and every other form and formlessness. We are all citizens of Earth. All of our lives we sing that nothing must be sung, but the networks of our ignorance activate our reception to each other in the only channels we ever arrive to. Some of the rings of the night become us again as we know that a river of starlight brings us the news we show to each other. Then nothing is easy. Nothing delivers us to be the night again and show it to be the only word. Bring me the stars that carry us through the scars of the universe. I must see them now with our dearest dog in my arms. Still intention. Make the whole cloth like a killer as it descends to make disparate angles in a disappearing starlight. Somehow, there are others there that stand without shadows, and the light makes a fold inside our fire faces. As an evil makes way to be sculpted in music, we change it and incline the messages outside a circled target for embrace that we ride into vacancy with. The form we make to see to a savage internal life begins. Cut off hands endure an encounter as assault becomes to stand inside of us and sing. I continue without a red and black box there. I continue in the shadow of the daylight as my morning has escaped and I refuse to die. Many letters sent after the word. The animals insist that I love and relax with the shadow. Every book I find retunes the light, mangled through internal omnivores that signal me to plant. Tapirs find the pulse as we now roam them through rivers that deny the numbers of escape. We move to clear the vacancies in anger and become again the repetition that we seek. In each of our relationships, we tangle strangeness with decapitations and mark ourselves as oceans in disguise of air. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Yeah. Great. Yep. Thank you so much for joining us today. This book is being published at a time that I find really apropos. It's called Once Upon a Riot, and it's about both the necessity of resisting forms of oppression such as fascism and economic exploitation, but also about the beauties and challenges of raising a child in our political moment. And I can't think of a more perfect time for it to be published, though of course I wish these were not the conditions that we were all living in. And a lot of the poems use the word I, and I hope you see yourself in that. That's intentional. Like, I think a lot of people identify more with I than the third person, especially demographics that have been left out of historical narratives, such as women. And so please see yourselves also in these poems where the speaker does say I, and where it doesn't, where it's in the third person, please see yourselves there too. And for those of you I know, I'm so glad that you're here. I love you, and I love seeing your faces. For those of you I don't know, I'm so glad you're here. I also love you, and you know, I'm really glad that you're here with us in community. It's important to feel that right now in the face of again, everything that we're up against. So hopefully these poems you won't enjoy all of them, but hopefully there'll be little bits of them that move you or stir you in some way and that you take with you on your way out. And thank you again to Brenda and Roberto, who are phenomenal poets. It was so kind of them to drive down here and read with us. And also thank you to Sneja, who is one of the editors of the really cool new press, Match Factory Editions. I love what they're doing. They're really doing work that emphasizes the collective rather than the individual. And the title, or sorry, I was gonna say that they put out a really nice looking book. Like this cover is really fire, I think, so, yeah. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and jump into it. Home, shelter, view. 2 lit windows across the way and a scream from a child below. Doorbells ringing in my apartment and the apartments all around me. A masked neighbor touches our shared doorknob on the gate to the lot. I say, you go first, just let it slam. That way I don't breathe on you. 2 blocks away, the lake has taken what it wants. Water covers the beaches and sidewalks all the way up to the painted benches. My toddler tries to run into the lake where it overtakes the path in the prairie grass. People in masks take photos and videos to show it really did erode overnight. We all gawk 6 feet apart while my daughter shovels sand where there should be concrete. When I get home, more emails saying workers need ER visits covered, and my daughter draws me an endless spiral. Meanwhile, all the normal emergencies continue to accrue as people eat too much sugar and continue to drink to the point of blackouts. Today, my mother called to say, someone shot off my brother's ear. Someday I'll do it. Oh, I will. The ongoing work of liberation, or the aggressiveness of liberation theology. Your skinned knees. I've never seen you bleed before. I hold you while you cry, and then you get down and run and fall and run and fall again. A way to unfuck democracy. You try to join every volleyball or soccer game we pass. I pick you up and carry you screaming. Architectural details minus content is merely mechanical. It doesn't matter that the bricks are made from mud dredged from Lake Calumet, or that the factory is in ruins. It says a lot that there's a memorial rose garden for a strike, that workers were paid minus the rent for row houses. And your skin is blooming with crusty roses because you see yourself everywhere you can't wait to get. April 14th, 2020. Obviously during the pandemic, right? Chicago's beach is empty of people and filled with pigeons. The blue lake creates a postcard backdrop to your swing. No children running the playground, just empty bottle caps and peanuts. We have this time to ourselves during what should be the work day, what should be entire work weeks. You run ahead to walk concrete ledges like balance beams. Your hand is small and warm when I hold it on the high parts. When I win, I start again. With my one wild and precious, I am compelled to press start over and over. Why must I dive into the cleft, sit with my schnee part, come up with a mouthful of, I did it wrong, consult the cards looking for empress in the new year, or at least the fool at the start of the month? Why can I not find the place where the root snakes forward? See the strategy of the maps I spread across the office, the way I decorate a couch or raise my daughter to jump on a trampoline, how the earth shakes when I pronounce ne passaran to mean the fascists will die in the mountain pass, and when spring comes, it comes with new songs. Touch the underside of just about any valley so that it moans with today and is not merely a sight. All that history is how you arrived here. Nashville's courthouse is burning. I turn on the TV to learn more about the poetry of the headline. The news labels all uprisings as riots instead of need. There is no easy way to step up and say, I demand to be free. Mayors allow police to kill freely and the president tells senators who are black to go home. I want to write in your baby book that everything Baldwin wrote was in between fires. A pause to breathe hope and fear into chests. Bellows for particular ends. And that's referencing James Baldwin, who wrote The Fire Next Time, which is one of my all-time favorite works of literature. And when I returned to teaching, was one of the reasons I wanted to return to teaching, because it was so phenomenal as a work of art and as political, tract, both. It's just, how can you do both so well? Men who eat ringforts are the same as men who eat my actions with their dead-eyed stares and flippant rolling mouths at the edges of the universe, where the centuries unroll into and out of my womb with only lip service about my skills at flattening a plan written across a map on the top of a table, filled with pins and the drippings of mustaches that have to be swept aside to make way for the world that is unrolling into and out of the symbols that shift, even though they were once hard data connected by synapses, and theories about how to win against kings and their kingmakers, who are daily inventing new methods to tally, grind, wax, and wane, even if only on the head of a pin, where angels dance without sense or vision, simply to entertain those who would place a heavy creased thumb on their crowns. Thank you. You're all so kind. Okay. This book is kind of in 3 sections, so skipping ahead to the next one. And I did change up a few poems from last time for those of you who were at the last reading, so hopefully, we'll have moments of newness there. 3 object lessons. The Serving Girl. 1. By 79, I was a piano. someone else's place to put sheets. I was stupid then about refusing. The moths beating in the window, a worry. All those gloves crumpled in the foyer. A piece about the migration of birds while I held up vases. That kind of music. 2. So many pretty, tired boys asking, handouts, reach around, start smiling at 2. How they fixed things was, the tea things kept disappearing until, not that much. 3. I was the maid's room, pretending not to know the gratuitous nature of the maid's room. My own mother, a kitchen. Insurgent. It didn't matter that we couldn't afford all the electric bills that made light. I did my homework romantically. I did my dodgy life by candlelight. A child who didn't know not to play with her grandpa's war-given glass eyes. A practitioner of the retrograde arts. The unimagined girl in the backdrop. I watched men and waiters fishing in weeds, magically pulling fish from the grass. I rode in a car with a red body and an orange hood salvaged from junk. I learned all the things that shouldn't go. I was the girl doing kerosene math. And oh, also, please, if you're hungry or thirsty, get some snacks or water from the back. Don't worry about making noise. It won't be too noisy. It's carpeted. We're all bodies in motion. Having said that, bodies, useful and celebratory. I surprised myself by giving orders, and my friends squeezed across the floor, bodies recruiting bodies, a warm sweating everywhere until there were bodies mapped with sandwich and water routes, and we had to sustain the cities of changing bodies because this wasn't formal, because the exits and elevators kept multiplying, but we were going to break this Wisconsin budget through a quorum of kindergarten teachers, and soon this would be set to Arcade Fire, a video of my friends at the doors laughing and leading their groups. But first, the thousands had birthed us. None of us could claim it. Least of all, the critics roaming freely outside, while we made ourselves sick with our cities. The work it takes to keep politicians inside, to keep moving bodies risky and focused. Eventually, we will all, this one's for you all because you're in Chicago. Eventually, we will all be doing what we want to be doing. Magazines and horoscopes say so. I fear my body, the way it's crisscrossed with maps and struggles with location. Men in khaki shorts and Cubs hats surround us in the otherwise free knit zone known as Damon Avenue. Soon I won't be able to afford a car because it's always getting towed. Invisible electric fences follow us wherever we go, our bodies constituting foreign trade zones. There's a skate park under the overpass. I know some kids who love freedom. We ask for water in tall glasses. The water is free and the tallness seems a luxury. I am always just exiting Regal Cinemas, wishing I could go back to the show. And you all are so nice. So the next one, I'm gonna give you a choose your own adventure. I can either read Rue, a poem about like sort of the cycles of oppression and resistance in old time France, or May Day, a poem about a contemporary May Day parade led by an immigrant rights organization, after which I'll be reading a poem about a unionization drive by some workers that were largely immigrant workers. So. Okay.
Good idea.
Okay.
Don't make us choose.
Okay. Okay. I like y'all. Okay. I like your thinking. Rue. To be at right angle to the river simply to keep a shapely line is to misunderstand the reason for building. Boulevard's ending climax, the discipline of columns. Several avenues converging on an opera house is a watchful eye in a city where the rues are merely tactical. Revolution, a sympathy between dark windows. A street built for parades will eventually terminate in slums. Classical, put your couple up to its purpose. The citizens will want a public market, but under colored awnings, Paris is still a military camp. Lanterns smashing, horses freed. Only an emperor would build streets of muddy macadam, even when told the people have no stilts. Who would ever want to go from the Bourse to the opera? A magistrate once dangled from the street lamp at Hotel de Vida. A lack of shortcomings will stir no blood. And I'm terrible at pronouncing other languages. I probably messed up some of those words, but the pronunciations. Mayday. My mouth is crowded with weather left over from today's parade. What will grow here out of the fist, waving on a flag I reached to touch with my fingers while a boy watched? Will it look like a woman standing on a car with a camera? Did she catch our faces right? Will viewers see us singing clandestino at the ends of lines, in between buying food from a truck and watching red-winged blackbirds? I want to know what kind of erotica the subcomandante writes. Surely he knows how to write sunburned eyes and how to make Lorca kiss Mayakovsky next to the elote cart, and also how to make them just another thing happening with all those feet, while all those feet march the streets and sidewalks. While the band plays music until the confusion of birds and traffic is hot. We have to be where we're at because in the Midwest there is no horizon. The water around this city is the kind of fluid doctors talk about. We create spectacle, our bodies moving into a future filled with vendors who sell nothing, barter in moments. I open my coat, a Milwaukee street like a Paris committee, a protester like a laptop in a forest. Terror. My neighbor's missing teeth, those blank pages, a 30-foot white cross looming in the rear-view mirror. I keep trying to find new words for this must-be disease, the difficulty of shitting in jail. There are no keystrokes. Here are all the shivering testicles, coughing nights spent on the Wisconsin Capitol's floors. I once knew how to use verbs, the leafy redness that terrorizes from gardens and vases, an inward branching, Simone composing, swelling with Mississippi goddamn. Recognition. Guards treat the pizzeros like flunkies convalescing in the hot sun or a bacterial picket line, one-celled and multiplying, a heel-to-toe phantasm on the sidewalk, police threatening citations for stepping on the grass, backstepping through history, and still strikers and allies fight back through Instagram, a strategic nostalgia for sweating, letterboxed for the news. El Pueblo Unido, the language of missing fingers parading through living rooms. People need to know we are all loopy survivalists of realism, and there are circles forming right now under the sun. And now the last poem, sorry, it took a little bit longer, because you chose two in one poem. Okay. Take one, take two, take three. 1. I want to know my own face in each of the rooms. Already faces there looking like someone no imagined, like no one's idea of a good time, or a strike one, or a line that grabs you by the throat, or even just a slow swing in a hammock in the breeze. Birds hanging around, singing the kinds of songs that birds sing, cake with funfetti sprinkles, and lithographs of the original anti-fascist man in a cap. All the chairs are already taken, and a chorus of high school girls starts whispering. It's probably time to sit down, but some witch not exactly hiding casts a spell, less about knowing than feeling one's way through a room. 2. I want to know each of the rooms, looking like someone, like no one's idea of a strike one, or birds hanging around in the breeze. I want to be the original lithograph of the anti-fascist man in a cap, funfetti sprinkles, a chorus of high school girls. It's probably time to cast a spell less about knowing than feeling one's way through the room. 3. I want to know someone, a chorus of girls, a strike one, birds hanging around in the breeze, to be the original anti-fascist man in a cap, funfetti sprinkles, a way through a room.
Dawn, because for me, Dawn is the mysterious one here. So, Dawn, talk about your influences for poetry.
Other
In terms of
than Brenda or
your
Roberto.
literary influences for poetry, there are plenty of historical events and stuff, but who and what writers, poets specifically, and then fiction or nonfiction people do you count? Well, we know that James Baldwin matters to you.
Yes.
We know that. So what else?
Paul Celan, the poet, he was Jewish. He was writing after the Holocaust. I think all of his family had been killed. I think all of his family had been killed during the Nazi reign. And he famously said he had to reinvent the German language after in order to be able to write again.
Wow.
So that's like re-owning, right? Like taking back a language. And I think that's a beautiful concept. And the phrase, I'm not pronouncing it right again because I'm not great at this, but it's one of my favorite phrases and I can't say it.
No
Thank you. Say it again.
No pasarán.
She says it so much better. That's one of my favorite phrases. It's a phrase from the Spanish Civil War that meant they shall not pass. It was referring to the fascists, and it's been used in various artistic movements and political movements since. You might know that the Pussy Riot had used it, and anyway, I first encountered that phrase in a Paul Celan poem, which, again, I love it when my loves meet, right? Which is really good art and politics. I'm not into, I understand propaganda and I appreciate it for its utilitarian purposes, but it's not what I think of. When I think of art, I think of, art that is going to work as art regardless of the content, but then I also like it when it has a lot of political content, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm saying, okay. And so he was one of the influences, I'd say. I also really love, though, fiction and nonfiction, so I don't like to reduce it just to poets. So I love Baldwin, who I consider a poet who's writing in essay form. So, I view his essays as sort of like lyrical essays, whether they are categorized that way or not. So he is one of my influences also. I also really love Olena Karliczek-Davis. She's a poet. I like poems that move between different types of forms. Like I like narrative, I like experimental, I like prose poems, I like everything. And so I like poets who dabble in everything and try it all. I know that most people want a book that just does the same type of style over and over, but I'm more into like playing across various styles and forms. And she does that a lot, I think, and I appreciate that about her work. And then I'd say, so those are three people off the top of my head that I can name. There's a lot more, but I'll now maybe allow somebody else to speak so that I don't speak ad nauseum.
I have a follow-up question, real quick. Just one last question. Between you four, have you read the Guatemalan writer who wrote Men of Maíz? Asturias. Have you read that?
I've read Asturias.
You've read it.
I've read that.
Have you read it?
Yes, actually, a phrase from his book is my signature in my email. So if you've ever received an email from me,
All right.
and I say his name and Men of Maíz at the bottom.
Asturias. Okay. All right. I'm done.
All right, Lindy has a question.
Can you speak a little bit about the complicated nature of sort of like, I don't know, like, it's not really a Venn diagram, but your relationship with politics and being a mother? Like, can you speak more about how that can be complicated, how it can be maybe romanticized, but also on the other side of that?
I love this question. That's such a great question. Thank you. It's something I'm thinking about a lot right now because it's a scary time to be a parent to a child. It's a scary time to be a human, and then to have to be raising another human during it is like an extra layer of scariness. So I'm taking it as an opportunity to inoculate her against things that might happen in the future, so as to not be overwhelmed in the future. I'm taking care not to overwhelm her now, but inoculation is like giving a little dose of something, right? So that when you encounter it, you have some resistance built up to it. Because there might be some scary things in the future. I was afraid of raids on her school, for instance. My daughter is biracial. I'm afraid of, something happening to her due to that, or she's a girl, you know, something happening to her due to that. I mean, there's so many things that could happen, right, given the current administration. And
like part of my question was also how is that like worked through in your writing? Like how is that complicated by writing about her?
I mean, I think I'm trying to write in ways that expose the sort of difficulties, the challenges we face in trying to live under the conditions we live, as well as to take action in response to them. And I'd say that it's like I don't just want to write a bunch of sweet poems, right? But I did include like a couple of those too. But I also want to write about the things that are hard to face. They're hard to face alone or together. The things that she might have to steel herself against, you know, in the future, or find herself stepping into in the future. It'll always be up to her. I'm not the kind of parent who tries to force anything on my child. I want to expose them, and then it's up to them, right? I don't know if that answers it all.
I have a follow-up question that kind of piggybacks on that, and I was trying to find the poem that you read, but you can maybe, but you'll know what I'm talking about, where it addresses you. You know, the you is on the narrative plane, the daughter, the child, and there's a section that goes. Or maybe it's a she, I don't know, but it's like run and fall, the way to unfuck democracy, right? And so I kind of have obviously like on another level, that person running and falling, it's all of us trying to change the world, make the world a better place, right?
Yes.
So to me, like this is, I just have like a process, a question. Maybe you don't remember. I know I have a hard time remembering like the process of individual poems, especially. You know, but I was wondering if did that poem start with like, I mean, obviously like it starts with like this, today I saw you bleed for the first time, you know, so I could see a poem like that starting with like, I need to write this down, this is like a momentous moment, you know, in the life of raising a child, and then it became a poem also about resistance, or was it a poem that started as a poem about resistance and about us, and it became also about, do you have any recollection of how that came
but
to be?
I think I have a mind that works in a certain way, like ellipsis, you know, ellipses, like elliptical thinking, where we go from one thing to another that's not directly related, but is also somewhat related. I think that's my favorite style of poetry. There's like a lot of jumps between things, leaps between things, and you have to fill in gaps yourself and create your own meaning about how those things are connected. There might be signals about how they're connected, but I think I like poetry that does that, because if somebody just tells me something, I'm bored, I want to work, I have a mind, and I want it to be active. It's the same reason I like reading theory, like you have to co-create, right? And I want readers to be co-creators. So I think as a writer, I'm sort of always automatically thinking in those ways where I don't sit down and say I'm gonna write about X and it's gonna say Y. It's always sort of like jumping from one thing to the next and seeing how it works, and going back and revising it where it's not working enough for me, because there have to be connections for me that are either indirect or direct, you know. But yeah, I don't know if that. And also, I think that's a bit of a selfish question, because that poem arose from a trip that the three of us took.
Really? I honestly didn't know that.
Yeah, I was teasing you about selfish. It arose from a trip that we took to Pullman.
Now I feel especially important.
It arose in part from that.
Awesome.
So Pullman, the nearby town.
I think Paul has a question.
I didn't, but I have one.
I thought you did too. He had his hand up.
Yeah, you had your hand up.
I was probably just scratching my face.
This is what happens. I'm also a teacher, like a lot of people here, and I'm eagerly awaiting a question at any moment. If someone even shifts their arm, like, you had a question, go.
I'll ask you, what's at stake for each of you when you sit down to write? When you sit down to write, what's at stake? What's on the line?
We'll let you answer that
Yeah.
first.
Start on that side.
That's
What's
hard.
at stake?
What's at stake? I don't know. I'm not writing right now, but I usually write every day in the morning. And, you know, I mostly improvise. I last few years I've been listening mostly to music, and then before I get to my writing, so I try to respond to my life and to the music that I pay attention to through my writing practice. It's not clear. I don't know how to describe it. I don't have the terms. I mean, it's just a feeling. So I work in the way that I love to work, and then if it doesn't seem done that day, I usually don't spend more than a week on a piece. But then I go back to it, and if I like it, I keep it. If I don't, I don't.
What's at stake?
I don't know. I mean, the whole book is at stake. I mean, like, there's all kinds of things that go into it every single day, So I want my book to be, at least have as much in it as my life does,
That's a great answer.
What a great line. Yeah.
What's at stake? I think several things are at stake for me. One thing is that I want to make a poem that matters in some way, right? That isn't just a lot of driveling about whatever, that isn't just and I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to say that they're all bad poems, but that isn't just a pretty garden poem, and that also isn't just a, oh, woe is me poem, right? But that matters in some way to, not only to me, but to others as well, and that others might be able to connect to, that, it makes a difference that it's in the world, right? So I think that's one thing at stake. I think another thing that's at stake for me is the language, wanting to use language in a new way, wanting to say something in a new way, wanting the language, the images, the phrasing, whatever, to be fresh and new and different. So that we're discovering something when we're reading it, I guess. Yeah, that would be some of the things at stake.
And I'd say that for me, what's at stake primarily is writing an interesting poem. I want it to be alive and challenging, and again, I also want it to do many things, not every poem, but a lot of them I want to be doing many things at once. I want them to make people think, to feel, I want them to feel challenged in a way that might be annoying at times, but it's more pleasurable than annoying. It's maybe a combination of the two. I mean, that's like a perfect description of poetry for me, I think. And so, yeah, something that's interesting and moving and alive, something that I'll come back to and I'll pick up and be like, oh, I want to read this again, even though I wrote it. So, yeah. You can get tired of yourself real quick, I find.
Oh,
so.
yeah. And it's amazing how quickly, maybe it isn't that quick, because it takes a long time for a book to come out, from the time that a publisher accepts it, as many of you who write know, from the time they accept it to the time it's in print, it takes a long time. Plus, then there's all the time that you spent writing those poems, right, and organizing them and reorganizing them. So it seems quick, but maybe it isn't that quick, that I get really sick of my own poems. Like, I'm already sick of reading from Trace, so I'm hardly reading from it anymore, and it just came out 2 years ago. I'm reading new stuff, right, that I wrote after it. And I think it's, even though it only came out 2 years ago, it's like some of the poems were written right before I put the manuscript together, and other poems were written a long time ago, so it ends up feeling old, I think, to the writer. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just thinking about Roberto, like Roberto almost never, he'll have a book that just came out, I mean, and then he's not reading from it. I mean, it's out and he's not reading from it. He's reading new stuff, like everything he read today was new. He has a brand new chapbook that we just got in the mail today. And I said to him, is that from the new chapbook, what you just read? He said, no, this is past that. This is newer than that, right? So I'm always saying to him, aren't you going to promote this book that just came out? No, I'm reading some stuff after that, yeah. We're married, so I can.
Yeah.
You know.
You can say it.
I also wanted to say, if anyone, I mean, I bet a lot of you are also writers and stuff, and if you had questions about the press as well, I'm happy to answer those types of questions. And I also wanted to encourage you to sign up for a mailing list, because I know I said at the very beginning, it sounded like I only started a press in order to publish my friends. But I would run out of. I have a lot of friends who are talented writers, but you can't rely only on that, and I don't want to. I assume, one of the things that, one of the trains of thought that we shared, Robin and I, when we started talking about starting a press is, if we know these people, a handful of people, each of us, that have manuscripts that, in our humble opinions, were ready to be published, but they're not getting published for various reasons, that there must be a shit ton of other manuscripts in that stage, out there in the world, and if we can start a press, spread the word, that we could be a home for manuscripts out there, not just poetry, even though we started with poetry because we know more poets than other writers. And so we're excited to start reading unsolicited submissions too. We'll have a call toward the end of this year, maybe beginning of next year, with all the details on how we're going to do that. So if anyone is interested in that, you can sign up for our mailing list, and that's where we'll announce all that. Along with Dawn's book, so one of the things we're trying to do is, I think you mentioned that, like, foster a community and foster solidarity among writers, especially our writers, but also other writers who publish with other presses. There is no machinery out there helping to promote our work. You know what I mean? We only have ourselves, and so we're trying to also foster this kind of solidarity. So we try to publish 2 books at the same time, and have encourage our poets to promote each other. So together with Dawn's book on the same publication date, we also published The Size of the Horizon, or I Explained Everything to the Trees, by Mitchell Nobis, and he lives in Detroit, and this was someone actually we didn't know beforehand. This was someone we stumbled upon on Blue Sky, and so Dawn and Mitch hadn't known each other, but recently they did meet in person. So Dawn, one of the things that Dawn does is volunteers for EWOC. What does that stand for?
Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee.
And so she went to Detroit for their conference, and she and Mitch he helped organize. I mean, he organized basically the reading for both of them, and his friends and family came, and a friend of mine showed up as well, who is also a poet, Cal Freeman. Maybe some of you have crossed paths with him. And then later this year, we're going to publish Paul's book, Paul Martinez' poem.
Yeah, Paul.
Yay!
Yeah, Paul.
And then on
You want to say the name of it?
the domestic corpse. I wanted to say the title, and also like another poet who will publish around at the same time, Chad Helzel, who lives in Denver, and his book, Recordings of Dead Languages. This was total coincidence that there's a corpse in the title and then Dead Languages. A happy coincidence. And both of those they're two very different poets, but they have this. So I want to plug them a little bit too. They have this ability, which I keep rereading these manuscripts as we're working on them, but when I'm rereading them, I'm reading them with pleasure, and as if I'm reading them for the first time. What they share is this ability to go into really dark corners and yet somehow shed light and have moments of fun and joy and laughter, humor, So that's something to be expected. Also in the audience is Carmelyn Part, who is a fiction writer and a poet, whose book will be coming out as yet untitled. We're still figuring out the title. It'll come out in 2026, and there'll be our first fiction book, and it's speculative fiction, mostly in prose, but also in poetry form. So look out for that. This is also one of those experiences where I know the person, and we're friends, or we've collaborated on things for years, and then when I'm reading their stuff, my mind keeps forgetting, and I keep getting into the stories deeply, and I'm in that world, and I love spending time in that world. And again, dark things happen and light things happen, and there's sadness and there's humor, and so I don't know. I'm thrilled about all these things that are happening, but we'll be, like I said, reading stuff for years to come, hopefully. We'll be having events with Paul and Dawn, especially because they're here in Chicago. So you'll be appraised of that through the mailing list, or if you visit our website and check our news updates. So I just wanted to plug everyone else, especially people who are here. Yeah, so thank you so much. Let's mingle. Let's chat. Let's have snacks. And thank you all for coming. Yeah, Dawn is whispering in my ear. All of these books are for sale. Like I said, my book could also be swapped for books and other items. And then please help yourself to the postcards. I swear, all of it is free.
Yeah.
Also, if anybody doesn't have can't afford a book, I have a bunch of authors' copies, so I'll just give you one. Just let me know.
Oh, no, do you want cash or credit?